Hey guys, James here again with another Civilization video, and today I want to talk about Civ 7. As you might be aware, a couple months ago, Firaxis did confirm that a new Civilization game is in the works. It's not quite clear if this will be another mainline game, but a number of outlets and content creators have already started calling it Civ 7, so I'm going to do the same. With the announcement, obviously there is a ton of hype, and considering how much the historical 4X genre has expanded in the last few years, Firaxis is definitely an interesting place. We're starting to see a number of other games presenting their own takes on the formula, and so today, I want to reflect a bit on Civ 6 and the direction I hope the franchise moves towards. These of course are just my personal opinions based on how I enjoy playing the game, but if you agree or disagree with me, definitely feel free to comment down below, and I'd love to discuss any ideas that you guys have too. Let's dive into this. So my biggest wish for Civ 7 is what I'll call bringing back the culture. And what do I mean by that? In Civ 6, culture is an incredibly important resource as it takes you down the civics tree, allows you to appoint governors, and improves your government with policy cards. While I do like these systems, I think my main issue with it is the fact that the culture game can feel very short-term focused, and in many ways it feels kind of the same game to game. You just kind of pick the government that fits your victory type, and generally, you're just going to rotate through the same few policy cards to maximize whatever you're doing at the time. In this way, I feel like the idea of culture and playstyle in Civ 6 is very much dictated by the civ you choose at the start of the game and their intended design from the developers. Then the rest of the game just kind of becomes about you executing that civ's intended design. Sure, you can pivot away from that, but that also defeats the purpose of choosing a particular civ. For example, Basile and the Byzantine Empire are built around the idea of religion and warfare being connected. On its own, I think this is super interesting and gives you an intended playstyle that's vastly different than, say, Mansa Musa and Mali, who are built around deserts, generating gold, and having lower natural production. And so on the one hand, while I do think it's really cool to have all these different civilizations with vastly different playstyles and focuses, to me, Civ 6 doesn't really feel like me developing a unique empire. It's kind of weird. There's more overall playstyles across all the different civs, especially when compared to Civ 5, but at the same time, it can feel a bit restrictive when it comes to playing any single civ. So how could they improve culture as an idea and mechanic in Civ? I think both Humankind and Old World have solid takes on it which present players with choices and forces them to evaluate the situation they're in and how they want to play. In Old World, when you have enough civics points, you can use them to enact laws. These laws present you with two different directions your civilization can go. So for example, you can choose between slavery and freedom, where slavery increases your output from mines and quarries, while also increasing unrest in cities. On the other hand, choosing freedom grants you more gold yields per specialist. Throughout the game, you constantly choose between different laws, and in that way, you dictate what your empire is like, the culture that they have, and the playstyle you want to execute. In Humankind, there's a similar civics and ideology system. Every once in a while you'll be able to enact different civics which define your civilization. So, for example, early on you can choose your founding myth and by what right you rule. If you choose to rule by divine mandate, this grants you additional faith and moves you towards the tradition side of the social axis. If you choose to rule by natural right, this grants you additional influence and moves you towards the progress side of the social axis. Your position on these different ideological axes will also grant different bonuses to your civ. So, if you lean traditional, you'll get additional faith bonuses, and if you lean progress, you'll get additional science bonuses. There are even these in-game events that'll occur, and depending on the choices you make for your civ, these will move you along the different ideological axes as well. Again, this system allows you to choose what your empire is like, the culture that they have, and the playstyle that you want to execute. If we even look at Civ 5, they had these social policy trees that you would upgrade using culture, and choosing a specific tree to go down would help dictate how you wanted to play. If you decided to go down the tradition tree, that meant you'd most likely be building a tall empire. And if you decided to go down the liberty tree, that usually meant that you would be building a wide empire. I guess the point I'm really trying to make here is that I just want a more overarching and pervasive culture system in the game. I want to feel like I'm actually building a different empire every time I play. I want to build my version and my take on the Persian Empire, not the version of the Persian Empire that Firaxis wants me to build. It's really tough because I really do like how unique and different civs can feel in Civ 6, but ultimately, I feel like that part of the empire building that I love in 4X games isn't really captured in the current iteration. I'm fine if they keep the governors, policy cards, and even the civics tree, but I would like a system that has broader influences on my empire and how an individual game might play out. So my next wishlist item is maybe going to be a controversial one, but I would like to see Civ go away from the set victory type system and towards a more open-ended system, such as with a victory point system. I know this might sound blasphemous to a lot of longtime Civ fans, and even I'm not quite sure how well it'll work for the franchise, but the more I play Civ and other 4X and grand strategy games, the more I feel like having these victory types with very set in stone goals kinda restricts the game overall. In my opinion, adopting a victory point system could allow for much more freedom with how you play and could potentially reward a larger variety of playstyles and objectives. I also believe that having such a system would make the game less about reaching a final destination and more about building an empire and letting its story develop. So how might this work? I'm just brainstorming here, but among other things, you could reward points for every city you settle, and points when your cities reach a certain population threshold. This way you can promote both tall and wide playstyles. You could also gain or lose points for winning or losing wars. Maybe you could reward points for researching a certain number of techs or civics, building wonders, circumnavigating the globe. You could even include the old victory conditions as ways to get points. For example, launching a Mars colony, becoming culturally dominant over a civ, being named leader of the free world, having your religion named the world religion. These could all be different ways to grant a large amount of victory points. You could even get points from winning different scored competitions like the World Games and Nobel Prizes. Perhaps you could even have some Catan longest road type things, like having the largest population, having the most land mass, having the highest GDP, and so on. These could all provide points, while also being titles that other players can try and steal from you. I could maybe even see the point system as a way of balancing the game. Maybe if the game sees that the player is getting way ahead, it'll throw some different challenges at you to keep things interesting and engaging. I want to make it clear though that victory points don't necessarily need to be the only way to win. Domination could still be an option, of course, and maybe some alternate victory systems could be very interesting. Taking Old World as an example again, they have victory point system which is focused around your cities, their cultural levels, as well as some other ways to earn points. There is, however, an alternate victory condition called the Ambition Victory, which presents your dynasty with different ambitions throughout their lives. Completing 10 of these quests allows you to win an ambition victory. While the system has its own flaws, again, I just like how it allows for more player choice and freedom. Basically, I would just like to see a system that doesn't force players down the same paths over and over again. I want to see a system that gives players freedom in how they want to play and allows for more unique experiences between games. While I do recognize that point systems will have their own issues, I think a dynamic system with different and changing objectives could make the game far more interesting, varied, and not so focused on the end game. Okay, so for this final section, I'm just going to rattle off some quick hits. A huge area that I think everyone agrees could use some improvement is the AI. I know this is a struggle in pretty much any strategy game and all the Civ games ever, but my main issue with this is just that it doesn't feel like you're facing someone who's actively making decisions and trying to run an empire. It kind of just feels like they do whatever they want with no real regard to the situation. Somewhat connected to the AI is diplomacy. I think diplomacy right now, quite frankly, is just kind of bad, and it doesn't feel natural at all. I also think a better World Congress system where it actually feels like civs struggle and fight against each other would help make politics feel a bit more real. I think the UI design and quality of life could use some work too. It's not terrible, but it also shouldn't feel necessary to download a bunch of mods to improve it. Finally, I hope that Civ 7 takes a more natural approach to the game, history, and empire building. It's a little bit hard to explain what I mean, but I think one of my main issues with Civ 6 right now is just how board gamey it can feel. Maybe it's because of how builders work, maybe it's because of how districts work, but I feel like Civ 6 has much more of a board game aesthetic to it compared to other past games. I want to make it clear that I do like that, and I think it fills a certain niche, but I just think for this new game, I would like to see a different take on the series, rather than them trying to build on the style that they introduced in 6. I'm someone who plays these games for the story and empire building, and so I'd like to see something that doesn't feel like it's so focused on yields and whatnot. But hey, that's just me. Let me know down below what you think. Do you agree or disagree with any of my suggestions, and what do you hope to see in Civ 7? I think my ideas most likely aren't going to make it, but hey, who knows? And of course, if you enjoyed, please do consider hitting some of those buttons, and as usual, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.